They do not fall because they are weak. They fall because they forget how they rose. A king is not overthrown in a day. He is undone by 1,000 concessions made in the name of comfort, applause, or sentiment. He begins as a lion, feared and unchallenged. He ends as a lamb, loved by all, protected by none. The first law of power is clarity, the second is fear, the third is distance. Violate any one of them, and the throne beneath you begins to tremble. You see, a king who grows too familiar becomes too human, and once he is merely human in the eyes of his court, the daggers begin to glint. Power is not maintained by affection. It is preserved by awe. But kings forget this. They begin to speak like men, joke like men, confess like men. They trade their authority for approval, and approval is a fickle currency in the marketplace of power. The throne is not a chair, it is a mask, and the moment the mask slips, the vultures gather. No man in history has ever ruled safely by being understood. It is not the known ruler they fear, it is the unknowable one, the one whose silence is strategy, whose kindness is calculation, whose wrath is unpredictable. Kings fall because they trust what should be tested and test what should be trusted. They forget that loyalty is a currency bought daily, not a debt owed eternally. Betrayal does not come from enemies. It is an invention of proximity. Do not mistake the bow of a subject for submission. It may be a gesture of habit, not respect. The throne is always surrounded by actors, and the performance of loyalty is often the first act of betrayal. A wise ruler distrusts applause. He knows it is the loudest before the knives come out. They will flatter you when you are strong. They will pity you when you are weak. But in between, they plot. Not because they hate you, but because you have what they want. The throne is not a reward. It is bait. The higher you rise, the more invisible your enemies become. Their smiles widen, their praises swell, and just as you begin to believe you are loved, you are already being replaced. Kings fall when they forget that the throne is not made of gold, but of perception. It exists only so long as others believe it exists, and belief is fragile. It is eroded not by lies, but by inconsistencies. One hesitation, one apology, one lapse of certainty, and the myth dies. The man appears. And men are mortal. The court does not serve the king. It serves power. And the moment power appears elsewhere, in a rival, in a general, in a son, the court shifts, quietly, smoothly, like rats from a ship not yet sinking, but soon to be. To survive, a ruler must never become predictable. He must never become emotional. And above all, he must never believe in unconditional loyalty. The only thing unconditional is ambition. Even your most trusted advisors have kingdoms in their hearts. If not yours, then someone else's. If not now, then later. This is the hidden truth no king dares speak aloud. Every throne is rented, never owned. And the rent is paid in vigilance, in mystery, in controlled fear. Kings fall when they become servants to their image, rather than masters of it. When they seek to be loved more than respected, followed more than feared. The moment a ruler needs validation, he becomes vulnerable. Power requires solitude, not isolation of body, but of mind, a kind of emotional seclusion from the herd, because the herd loves its shepherd until it is hungry. A ruler must be many things, a mirror, a storm, a myth, but above all, he must be necessary. The moment he becomes optional, he is doomed. Kings fall when they forget that power is not possession, it is illusion, and that illusion must be crafted daily, with precision, with patience, with pain. He who builds his kingdom on sentiment builds on sand, but he who builds it on strategy builds it on stone, and still stone can crack. It takes only time. So when the king forgets to study his courtiers, to observe the mood of the crowd, to measure the ambition of his generals when he speaks too freely, smiles too often, forgives too easily, he writes the first chapter of his own exile. Every ruler must choose to be understood or to be obeyed. He cannot be both. Power does not belong to the righteous. It belongs to the relentless. So the throne will always belong not to the noble, not to the kind, not even to the strong, but to the one who understands that ruling is an act of war performed in peacetime. Kings fall because they start believing in peace. But the world does not stop conspiring. It only gets quieter. And that silence is the sound of succession. They fall when they speak too long and listen too little, when they confuse the echo of their own voice for the pulse of the state. A ruler must always remember, the more they speak, the more they reveal. And the more they reveal, the more they arm their enemies with the very weapons that will be used against them. Silence is not absence. It is architecture. Each pause must be deliberate, each word weighted like a stone placed into the foundation of authority. Loose tongues unmake empires, and those who cannot restrain their words will find they cannot restrain rebellion. There is no virtue in transparency for those who command. Transparency is a veil that flatters the ruled and shackles the ruler. The people demand clarity, but they do not desire the truth. What they hunger for is confidence, illusion, stability. Tell them too much, and they will doubt you. Tell them too little, and they will fear you. Tell them exactly enough, and you will rule them. Kings fall when they forget the art of controlled illusion, when they let reality bleed too far into the performance of power. Governance is theater, but a deadly one. The costumes are gold and steel. The script is carved in policy and punishment, and the audience, if not entertained or subdued, becomes the enemy. The ruler does not play a role, he becomes the role. The moment he hesitates, the mask slips. The moment he explains himself, the myth cracks. And the moment the myth cracks, the people remember he bleeds. A king must always be solving three problems at once. Who will betray him, who will rival him, and who will forget him? For the last is the most dangerous. When the people forget their fear of you, your laws lose weight. When your rivals forget your sharpness, they circle closer. When your closest forget your usefulness, they begin to fantasize about succession. The fall is never announced. It creeps in like dusk, so slowly you do not notice until night has fully swallowed the light. A misstep here, a concession there, a delay, a smile, an apology. And soon, the man who once commanded armies is asking for alliances, brokering peace with flatterers, kneeling before popularity as if it were a god. But popularity is a god that devours its worshippers. The moment it turns, it demands a sacrifice, and it is always the king. You cannot outlast power by sharing it. Delegation must be given as if it can be taken back at any moment. Never let your lieutenants believe the strength you lend them is their own. Reward them, but only to remind them who rewards. Promote them, but only to isolate them. Elevate them, but never above the height from which you could push them down. For kings do not lose their thrones to enemies, they lose them to favorites. Proximity breeds delusion. Let those closest to you forget that you are dangerous, and they will begin to dream. A loyal servant who forgets he serves is more fatal than any assassin, for his betrayal will come not from hatred, but from mistaken equality, and equality is poison to any throne. This is why kings must know not only how to reward, but how to destroy. Mercy must never be your default. Forgiveness must always cost something. If you pardon a traitor without pain, you invite two more. Violence is not cruelty when it preserves the realm. Severity is not tyranny when it maintains order. The ruler who hesitates to punish will one day beg for protection. There are only two kinds of followers, those who need you and those who use you. Confuse the two, and you will build your kingdom upon vipers. Need can be trusted until it evolves into independence. Use cannot be trusted ever. The wise king keeps both in check, never letting need become comfort, and never letting utility become leverage. A king must be the storm and the calm. He must be seen weeping at a funeral and unblinking at an execution. He must be praised by poets and feared by generals. He must bless the birth of a child in the morning and sign a death warrant before dusk. For the throne is not a monument, it is a battlefield. Every day it must be conquered again. Kings fall when they romanticize the past, when they seek to rule like their fathers or rule for history's approval. History is not a mirror, it is a weapon, and those who do not master it are killed by it. You must write your own legacy in real time, not through honor, but through results, not through dreams, but through decisions. The past cannot save a ruler, only the present can. They lose their thrones when they begin to negotiate with fear rather than wield it. Fear is not a vice, it is a compass. If you are feared, you are safe. If you are loved, you are vulnerable. If you are both, you are fortunate. But if you must choose, always choose fear, for fear guards the gate long after love has fled. The ruler who rules by affection must answer to every storm, every failure, every shifting mood of the masses. But the ruler who rules by fear is constant, steady, immune to the fickle tides of favor. Let them cheer for others. Let them pray for peace. But let them dread the thought of crossing you. That dread, that quiet, constant dread is your real crown. Power is maintained not by appearing invincible, but by making others doubt they can survive your wrath. The illusion of invincibility is enough, but the memory of retaliation is better. A punishment need not be frequent. It need only be unforgettable. Kings fall when they think their strength lies in themselves. It does not. It lies in what others believe about them. It lies in the atmosphere they create, in the silence that follows their name, in the restraint they inspire in others. Lose that, lose the throne. Do not mistake this for cynicism. It is clarity. Power is not evil. It is elemental. It is the fire by which order is forged and chaos held back, but it burns both the weak and the sentimental. Only those who understand its nature, who fear it even as they wield it, survive it. Every king is two men, the ruler and the man beneath the crown. One must live in the world of blood and diplomacy, the other must die. If he does not, the crown becomes a burden, not a weapon, and a burden is easy to steal, a weapon is not. So the wise king buries his softness, not because he lacks feeling, but because he cannot afford to act on it. Compassion is not forbidden, it is rationed. Trust is not absent, it is delayed. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is tactical. But pity is suicide. You will be tempted, always, to prove your goodness, to show that you are not like the others, that you are just, kind, modern, and they will applaud you, they will write songs, they will cheer, until the day they take what is yours and call it justice, until the day they tear down what you built and call it liberation. The throne does not reward humility. It demands command, not just of others, but of yourself, your desires, your reactions, your fears. You must be your own sovereign before you can rule others. For the man who cannot govern himself is a slave wearing a crown. And so, kings lose their thrones not when the enemy arrives, but when the fire within them goes out, when their will is diluted, when their mind is cluttered with doubts, distractions, and the narcotic of popularity. They lose it when they forget that to rule is not to be admired, it is to be envied, and envy sharpens blades in silence. Never forget, the crowd does not cheer for the king. It cheers for the idea that he too might fall. And they do fall, not from some sudden blow, but from slow erosion, the subtle decay of vigilance. A decision postponed, a conflict avoided, a rumor unanswered. This is how the foundation cracks. Not from earthquake, but from termites in the walls. The wise king listens not for thunder, but for whispers. For it is the whisper that precedes the revolt, the faint shift in tone that marks the turning of loyalty. But too many kings hear only praise, and in the warmth of praise they rot. There is a season for generosity, and a season for silence. The ruler who gives too much, too often, teaches his court to expect, and what is expected is no longer appreciated. It is demanded, then resented, then deemed insufficient, and finally, a pretext for rebellion. He who feeds the court with comfort starves it of fear, and a court without fear is a breeding ground for ambition. Stability is not natural. It is manufactured. It is purchased with decisions others cannot make, prices others will not pay. The people do not want truth. They want relief. They want the illusion of certainty, the performance of control. If you give them your doubts, They will offer you their contempt. They do not want a ruler to reflect them. They want a ruler to contain them, to be the edge against which their chaos breaks. But kings grow tired. They mistake their fatigue for wisdom. They begin to delegate not out of strategy, but out of comfort. They let others speak in their name, act in their place, represent their will, and soon their will is no longer known. Soon, others make decisions in the dark corners of the palace, and the people begin to wonder who truly rules. The king remains in title, but power, like blood, has already begun to drain from the body. This is the slow death of command, not in defeat, but in diffusion. Power, once shared too freely, never fully returns. It drips from the fingers of the once mighty and pools in unexpected hands. The steward becomes a force, the general becomes a voice. The advisor becomes a shadow king, and when the real king awakens to this shift, it is already too late. Power is not retrieved by asking, it is only reclaimed by fear. But fear requires presence, not merely of body, but of mind. A king cannot drift, he cannot disappear into ceremony. He must be seen, and seen as necessary, as central, as dangerous. When he becomes a figurehead, a symbol without substance, he is already being mourned in secret. Even ritual becomes dangerous when mistaken for relevance. Coronations, parades, declarations, these are theater, not power. And a king too enchanted by spectacle forgets the substance. He begins to perform rather than command. He begins to rehearse his own myth instead of adapting to reality. And reality does not forgive actors. The most seductive enemy a ruler faces is nostalgia, the belief that the past can be resurrected, that old alliances, old values, old styles of rule can be made new again. But power does not repeat it, mutates. What worked yesterday signals weakness today. Kings who rule by memory are unarmed against the present. Do not look backward. There is no honor in imitation. Rule as the time demands, not as your forebears did. The people you govern are not the same. Their hunger is sharper, their tolerance thinner, their attention fractured. They are shaped by different fears, different myths, different lies. Govern accordingly. Control perception, and you control action. Let them see what you want them to see. Let them hear what you choose. Your enemies are not only those who oppose you, they are those who shape what others believe about you. Do not underestimate the power of narrative. A single well-placed story can unmake a reign more effectively than an army. The wise king owns his legend. He decides how he is remembered while he is still alive. He sculpts the myth in real time. He understands that history is not written by the victor. It is written by those who control memory. Be that man. Shape memory before it shapes you. And yet, so many kings die anonymous in history's pages, once adored, now forgotten. Their monuments crumble, their laws reversed, their names unspoken. Because they governed for comfort, not permanence. Because they mistook the moment for the legacy. They danced for applause, and the applause died with them. To endure, a king must create more than laws. He must create fear that outlives his presence. Fear not of punishment, but of absence. The kind of dread that wonders, if he falls, what chaos will rise in his place. That is the true throne, when even your downfall is feared more than your reign. But such power is rare, and it is costly. It demands discipline beyond comfort, restraint beyond vanity, a willingness to be misunderstood, even hated, because the price of enduring rule is often the sacrifice of being liked. You must not seek affection from those you rule. You must seek their dependence. Dependence is the true chain. It does not clink like iron. It feels like safety. It sounds like tradition. It smells like protection. But it is a collar all the same. And when the people cannot imagine life without you, then you have ruled well. Kings fall when they forget this, when they begin to believe they are exceptional rather than essential, when they seek legacy through generosity rather than necessity. They want to be remembered for their kindness, their vision, their humanity. But power does not remember kindness. It remembers consequence. Let them write your story in fear. Let them call you cruel, callous, calculating. Let them say you were silent when they wanted speeches, distant when they wanted affection, brutal when they begged for mercy. But let them remember that under you the world held its shape, that under you the storms never came, that under you the gates stayed closed. Let that be your monument. Because kings who are loved are forgotten, but kings who are feared live forever. And yet, even the feared grow weary. Even the most calculating ruler finds himself tempted to rest, to lean upon past triumphs as if they were guarantees of future dominion. But power grants no retirement. It does not honor seniority. It does not respect memory. It demands renewal daily, mercilessly, without exception. The moment a ruler believes he is owed anything by power, he has already begun to lose it. The kingdom is not a family. It is not a fraternity. It is a marketplace of survival. Every alliance is a negotiation. Every friendship, a conditional pact. Every loyalty, an agreement with an expiration date. The king who governs as if he is surrounded by brothers will be reminded that ambition has no kin, and the throne no heirs, only competitors in waiting. Blood does not bind in politics. It stains. And still, rulers cling to sentiment. They elevate kin, childhood friends, old allies hoping to replicate past loyalties in a present that no longer recognizes them. But trust built in peacetime is brittle in crisis. The man who once feasted at your table will, in time, look at your seat and wonder how it would feel to sit in it. And when that thought ripens into hunger, it will not be honor that restrains him. It will be calculation. If that fails, you fall. There is no such thing as permanent loyalty. There is only the loyalty that is useful. A king must make himself indispensable, not beloved. The man they cannot afford to lose, that is the one they will protect. Make their fortunes depend on your breath. Make their futures collapse at the thought of your fall. Build your security not on affection, but on structural necessity. Then, even your enemies will hesitate to strike. But kings forget. They soften with time. They become generous without purpose, forgiving without caution. They grow fond of the applause, the praise, the myth of benevolence. And in that softness, their edges dull. Their silhouette no longer strikes fear. Their silence no longer commands speculation. They are spoken about too casually, compared, measured, questioned. And the throne, once unreachable, begins to look like a seat that can be inherited or taken. Do not become a king who smiles more than he listens, who speaks more than he observes, who embraces more than he interrogates. Sentiment is a weakness in rule. It makes you predictable, and nothing invites ambition like predictability. The man who knows your rhythm knows where to place the blade. A ruler must live in shadow, not just in public light. He must have two faces, one that reassures and one that watches, one that rules and one that judges. To lead is not to reveal your whole self. It is to become a mirror in which others see what they fear and what they hope, not what you are. Let others be transparent. Let them wear their hearts on their sleeves. Let them argue, confess, seek redemption. You must remain a question unsolved, unapproachable, undefined. That is how power survives. That is how it walks through storms untouched. The state is a body, and the ruler its mind. And just as the body obeys the mind without explanation, the people must obey the ruler without intimacy. They need not understand you. They need not like you. They need only believe in the consequences of disobedience. This belief must be cultivated carefully. Too much brutality, and they will rebel. Too little, and they will forget. Strike sparingly, but with finality. Let every punishment be a sermon. Let every fall of the axe echo through corridors long after the body has been removed. Then you will not need to strike often. Fear will do the rest. Kings fall not because they are outnumbered, but because they are outmaneuvered, not because they are hated, but because they are no longer needed. The court that once cheered them will write sonnets for their successors. The people who once chanted their names will sell their portraits for food. No loyalty survives irrelevance. and no relevance survives complacency. There is no moral in this. There is no redemption arc. There is no higher justice that rewards good kings and punishes tyrants. The world is not a fable. It is an arena. The crown does not weigh heavy with responsibility. It weighs heavy with risk, with exposure, with the knowledge that every hand you shake may one day tighten into a fist. So what then sustains a king? What protects the throne when trust is illusion and affection is fleeting? Ruthless clarity, emotional discipline, the relentless management of perception, the acceptance that love is a liability, and the will to be feared precisely because it is the only shield that endures betrayal. To rule is to carry solitude like armor. It is to walk alone while surrounded, to smile while assessing, to act while doubting, and to punish not with anger but with precision. The moment you hesitate to be feared, you have chosen to be forgotten. Do not seek peace, seek control. Peace is a temporary lull, an intermission between contests of will. It is never permanent, never real. Those who mistake calm for safety will be the first to die when the storm returns. Do not seek fairness, seek advantage. Fairness is the idol of the weak, a word used to shame the strong into guilt, and guilt into concession. There is no fairness in power, only timing, only leverage, only outcome. Do not seek justice, seek order. Justice is a myth used to comfort the ruled, but it is not the engine of history. Order Island. The man who brings order, even if he does so with iron, will outlive the dreamers who brought nothing but noble intentions and ruin. And do not seek to be remembered fondly. Seek to be remembered completely. To cast a shadow so large that even those who hate you must speak your name with caution. This is the ruler's path. Not easy, not noble, but necessary. Because once you accept this, once you truly understand that love will not save you, that virtue will not shield you, that mercy will not guarantee you loyalty, then you will begin to rule not as a man, but as a force. And forces do not fall. They are not overthrown. They are not forgotten. They become law. Then let this be the final lesson. You were never born to be loved. You were born to be obeyed or destroyed. Power is not something you hold. It is something you become. A shadow cast across generations. A force that speaks even in silence. A storm remembered long after it has passed. The throne is not secured by goodwill. It is secured by necessity. They must need you more than they wish to replace you. They must fear your absence more than your presence. They must believe, in their quiet hearts, that without you the walls collapse, the world turns savage, the wolves return. And when you are gone, for all rulers vanish in the end, let them find no one to replace you. Let your discipline be unmatched. Let your mind be legend. Let your name be whispered with reverence and restraint. The good king is mourned. The great king is replaced. But the terrifying king is never truly gone. He becomes a standard by which all others are measured and found lacking. So leave behind no portrait, no diary, no trace of softness. Let history argue about your motives, your methods, your humanity. Let them speculate. Let them wonder. Let them rewrite and revise and attempt to make sense of your silence, but never let them own it. Because when they can no longer understand you, they can no longer undo you. That is how kings live forever. And that is why the throne still remembers the weight of your shadow, long after your crown has turned to dust.